Good evening. It's now 5:30. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Before we begin, we would really like to take a moment of silence for the two of our teachers who passed away last week, Ms. Despina Gamble and Ms. Leslie Conley. They were both amazing teachers at Mark Twain. So at this moment, would you please join me in a moment of silence to remember them? Thank you for that. They will be truly missed. Welcome. This meeting is being webcast live and recorded. The recording of the webcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. At this time, I would like to remind everyone of the procedures of public participation in tonight's meeting. Members of the public are encouraged to attend and address the board on any agenda item or topic within the board's jurisdiction. Public comments will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker with a total of 20 minutes allocated for each item. If necessary, the president may adjust these times to ensure everyone has the opportunity to speak. Non-English speakers will be given double the time if a translator is used. Speaker request forms are available at the entrance of the boardroom and can be handed to Ms. Gonzalez prior to the public comment. Regarding complaints, if a concern is raised about an employee, the complainant will be informed of the appropriate complaint procedure. The first step is for complainant to submit the concern in writing to the district office, after which the district will begin the investigation process to address the issue fairly and promptly. Complaints involving child abuse or unlawful discrimination will be handled in accordance with specific legal protocols. Please note that any documents handed to the board during the meetings are subject to public records request in accordance with the California Public Records Act. The board prohibits retaliation against complainants, and all complaints will be investigated promptly and impartially. Please be respectful of the meeting process. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and may result in removal from the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. I can please have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to adopt the board meeting agenda? Patty made a motion, Sammy second. Thank you. Roll call, Patty. Aye. Sammy. Aye. Sandra. Aye. Valerie. Aye. And I. Report, superintendent report.
Yes, good evening, Board President, Cisneros, and members of the board. Again, just our deep condolences go out to the two families. And we've also had some staff members that have lost family as well. So just to them as well, as it's, we're ending the school year and it was a rough time. But I also want to thank our team, Ms. Copeland overseas, and it's all of our counselors, our therapists that just moved in. I've given us notice to be able to provide support to our students and our families, both whether the school was in session or not. So I want to thank them for that. And just in addition to that, tonight we're going to be sharing with you the budget. And so Ms. Alvarez and her team, Ms. Luna being one of them that's here in the audience, as well as Mrs. Mendoza and Dr. Vargas and the rest of the team take a lot of time to put this together. So I just want to publicly thank them for that work because it takes a lot, right? So Rebecca Schrader, Sylvia, Angie, and Becca, and Will. I want to make sure I capture everybody, all play a role in that. And so it's a lot of work. And so I want to thank them for that. And other than that, we had graduation and those other things, we got some feedback, everything positive, the negative, etc. And so we will debrief when everybody comes back and be able to, continue to increase the quality of those celebrations, right? And so with that, we have summer school happening right now, and we have quite a few kids at UC Merced. In Fresno Pacific and the UC Merced Math Academy. So it's pretty amazing to see them, as well as all of our RAC students who are over at John Muir right now. Okay, and with that, I yield my time.
Board of Trustees? Do we have California Faculty Association online? Okay. California School Employees Association? Very good. So we're going to go ahead on to other reports. At this time, I would like to invite Elizabeth Mendoza, Director of Category Programs, to the podium.
Good evening, President Cisneros and board members. Tonight, I will provide a brief overview of Corporate Joint Unified's 26-27 dashboard local indicator self-reflection report. These local indicators are part of the California accountability system and provide an opportunity for the district to reflect on implementation of key local control funding formula priorities, including basic services, academic standards, parent engagement, school climate, and access to a broad course of study. So the purpose of the local indicators is to measure our progress in areas that are not reflected through state test scores alone. These indicators help us evaluate how effectively we are supporting students, families, and staff, and how we provide valuable information to guide continuous improvement efforts. Overall, the district has met the reporting requirements for all the local indicators and demonstrated continued implementation across each priority. And you see those 7 indicators listed as reference on this page. But now I will move on to looking at each one individually. Under priority 1, the district evaluates access to instructional materials, facility conditions, and teacher assignments. I'm pleased to report that all students have access to standards-aligned instructional materials, both at school and at home, and there are no identified facilities that failed to meet the good repair standard. These results demonstrated our continued commitment to providing safe, well-maintained learning environments, which is a board priority, and ensuring that students have the resources necessary for academic success. If you look at the teacher assignment data, it is the most recent data, which is 23-24 published on DataQuest, with 79.4% having clear credentials, and then the breakdown of whether they are considered ineffective, which that just means that they're newer to the district, not that their evaluations are ineffective, okay? Bad term for California to use, by the way. Interns, out of field, and then incomplete credentials, which means that there was a reporting or there may have been a reporting error. In priority 2, the implementation of academic standards. The district has also reflected on the implementation of California's academic standards. Corcoran Joint Unified continues to rate itself at full implementation in English language arts, English language development, mathematics, career technical education, health, and physical education, as well as the visual and performing arts and world language programs. However, science and social studies were rated at initial implementation, which is considered a 3 instead of a 4 being the highest. And it's reflected that we're trying on an ongoing basis to strengthen the instructional practices at those. And one of the reasons that it may be rated lower than all the other standards is that at K-5, we don't really hit the standards the way that 6 through 12 implement. They're braided into the instruction. And so the focal point are not those history and social studies standards the way they would be in 6-12 with a period dedicated completely to those subject areas. But overall, the data does indicate that we have strong systems in place to support teachers through professional development, coaching, and collaborative planning. In priority 3, parent and family engagement. Family engagement continues to be an important strength for our district. Parent survey results indicate that 85% of parents believe that our schools are caring and welcoming. 83% feel that they have opportunities to provide input, and 86% believe that district programs reflect and value the diversity of the families. The district continues to provide multiple opportunities through ELACs, DLACs, school site councils, and EPAC meetings, as well as providing parent workshops, literacy nights, math nights, home visits, and regular communication through Parent Square and other platforms. While these results are encouraging, we always want them to be much larger, and we would love for higher participation rates in these trainings, advisory groups, and volunteer opportunities. So we're striving at increasing that participation every year. School climate remains one of our most important focus areas. The Panorama Student Survey identified strengths in teacher-student relationships and students' perceptions of rigorous expectations. However, the data also highlighted concerns regarding school safety, student belonging, and overall engagement. And that's the blue section that you see in the presentation. Only 44% of elementary students and 49% of secondary students reported favorable perceptions of school safety. Additionally, feelings of belonging were reported by only 38% of elementary students and 35% of secondary students. Secondary student engagement was particularly low at 24%. Student advisory groups continue to be a valuable asset to the district, identifying discipline issues, fighting disruptive behavior, and the quality of relationships with adults as major factors influencing their feelings of safety and connectedness. In response, the district will continue to strengthen positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS, restorative practices, social emotional learning, and opportunities for student voice while emphasizing relationships centered across all schools. And the final priority that we have reflected on as a district is the broad course of study. The review confirmed that 100% of students have access to a comprehensive educational program, including core academics, career technical education pathways, arts, music, PE, English learner services, and special education supports. The primary challenges identified are ongoing teacher shortages in specific content areas, and we know that those are math, science, and special education. So we do understand that those are limitations, but despite these challenges, the district continues and will remain committed to ensuring equitable access and opportunities for all students. So in closing, the local indicator self-reflection demonstrates many strengths across the district, including access to resources, implementation of standards, and meaningful family engagement. At the same time, the data clearly identifies opportunities for growth, particularly in areas of student safety, belonging, connectedness, and engagement. These findings directly inform the actions and the services in the 26-27 LCAP, and will continue to guide our continuous improvement efforts to ensure that every student feels safe, supported, connected, and successful. Are there any questions? Yes.
On part six,
Mhm.
the school belonging.
Yes.
Why do you think that number is so low? What?
Usually, school belonging has to do with connectedness, and that's whether a student feels that they are connected to something at the school. So it may be a teacher, it may be a support staff, it may be at the high school and junior high levels, activities such as clubs or sports. So if they check that they don't feel like there's something there that they're not connected to, they may or may not feel like a sense of belonging at the school. That is a very good question that we are.
Cause that's a
as
low
I
number.
said,
We that's a very low number, out of 3,200 students, that we have 38% believe that they belong. That to me is concerning. I hope we can find some solutions to bring that up. I
Right,
think they all need to feel like they belong. They need to feel comfortable in a learning environment, and I just feel we need to support.
right. And another thing could be that they do not feel engaged at the school, but I do know that some of the work that we did last week at our training institute has to do with setting higher expectations for our students, getting them engaged in the classroom and in lessons. And that in and of itself can help increase their sense of belonging because they'll feel like they have a purpose there versus just sitting and listening. If they're engaged, they're more likely to feel connected to the school. So we are working on that. And we're on a trajectory to really help improve the engagement in our classrooms in order to get this up so that activities aren't the only thing that students are connecting with.
Please start some sort of program. It's been quite a while, but I remember something that I was so impressed with, that the teachers were doing and bringing these kids into the circle.
Yes, I do remember. I have a blank right now, so I can't. It had to do with how to build relationships between teachers and students and staff members and whatnot. For some reason, I'm thinking of the Positivity Project that Brett Hart was doing earlier, but I don't believe that's the one that you're talking about. But yes, we did have something to that effect, but I believe that some of the changes and the ideas and initiatives that we're working on right now to increase the engagement in their classroom are really going to help with the connectedness.
How do we get the kids to tell us how they would feel more?
So currently we send out the surveys and we also have student advisory groups that we meet with that help inform not only the local indicators, but also the LCAP. We are required to have advisory groups from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade. So we have 2. And I know Mr. Casina also has his advisory groups. And that's where we could dig a little deeper. And that's where some of this qualitative information actually came from, why they feel disconnected.
It's just data from K through 5th, all for just.
These surveys are only 4 through 12, just because of the complexity sometimes of the surveys. We have done them down to 3rd grade, but it's not, surveys are not the best for anything under below that, just because they may not understand what a statement means or how they feel about it. And so we want to get the most accurate representation in order to really serve our students. But I do know that the elementaries have advisory groups, or Mr. Casina has had advisory meetings with younger students. But the interviews would probably be the best thing to get into the minds of our younger students, 3rd and below.
If I can help.
Sorry, but I can see the data in 38. But Mr. Under, we've been 200 students, but if they, how many took the survey so that we have a better understanding of 30% of how many?
I want to say that we had 1,700 students respond to that. The percentages of students who took it at Corcoran High School and John Muir were extremely high. So they had a 80 something percent response rate. The elementary was a little bit lower, but not significantly lower.
Yeah.
And I'm glad about that.
You're welcome.
If I could chime in real quick, so we do the advisories, both Ms. Mendoza and myself. I go all the way down to Brett Hart, and there is differences on how they look at belonging. And so my advisory at Brett Hart's K1, so that one's always interesting because kinder and 1st grade students do not have a filter, so they're gonna let you know exactly how they feel. And their pieces of belonging are more about, that they're all across the board. They all want to see an adult that cares for them, number one, right? That's the first thing. As you get up higher into like Mark Twain, middle school, high school, it's exactly what Ms. Mendoza is saying, is the students are saying, push us to learn, like challenge us. We want to work with our hands, we want to talk, we want to do those things, especially in middle school, right? Middle school, they're saying like, we want to be able to speak in our core classes, because what I'll ask them is, what class do you want to run to and be like, I want to be in here? And it's the electives in middle school, and ask them why, like robotics and, art, whatever. And I said, because we work together and we can talk and we challenge each other. And so that's where they're saying that. So that's a big factor in it. And then the other piece, last thing I'll say is that when we've had these advisories, like for example, the middle school, one thing that they didn't have was really any activities outside. So the school itself, they provided like games and stuff like that for them. Interesting, because at the high school, you would think that they wouldn't want recess anymore, but they asked for some type of recess setting. So those are still some things that go across that we're looking at. But that's all in the sense of belonging. But it's great questions you guys are bringing up, because that helps guide us as well in the next steps. So thank you.
Excuse me. My granddaughter, for instance, is terrified because she's gonna be starting job there. And I don't know where she gets that or why she feels that way, but is there any kind of a buddy system that the older kids, I know we had talked about that before, that would, help the new students there not be so intimidated with the whole situation?
Yeah, they were exploring, it's in the high school setting, it's called Link Crew. And I forget what it's called in the middle school. It's like a different,
Something similar.
something similar. They're like ambassadors, and they were starting to explore that. But of course, with the changes that we're gonna have there, that might be a little bit, we'll see what we can do still. We don't want to not stop that process. So working with Ms. Capigian, we can take a look and see. Yeah.
Is a busy girl. Wow.
Next.
Your name?
Well,
please?
good evening again, President Cisneros and board members. I will also be presenting the 26-27 LCAP Federal Addendum for Corporate Joint Unified School District. So the purpose of the federal addendum is that it serves our district's plan for utilizing the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, funding. It outlines how we use Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV resources to support student achievement and to align those resources to the LCAP. The purpose of the addendum is to ensure that our federal funds supplement and enhance the work already occurring through our state and local programs, while maintaining a strong focus on student outcomes and equity for all students. This federal addendum is directly aligned to our 2 district LCAP goals, which goal 1 focuses on developing a broad-based educational program that supports students academically, socially, and emotionally through a multi-tiered system of supports. And goal 2 focuses on creating welcoming, safe, and nurturing environments that foster student engagement and meaningful parent involvement. Goal 1 and goal 2, as you can see, reflect the board priorities that you have set. Our annual needs assessment process, which included input from parents, staff, students, educational and other educational partners, identified several continued areas of need, and these include the English language arts, math, chronic absenteeism, and suspension rates for the district. Federal funds support a variety of programs and services that directly impact student learning. So as you can see, Title I supports the academic achievement through literacy coaches and intervention services, supplemental instructional materials, assessment tools, and technology integration. Title II supports professional learning opportunities for teachers, administrators, and other staff to strengthen instructional practices and to improve student outcomes. Title III funding supports our English language learners through professional development focused on designated and integrated ELD instruction. And designated is just the period of time where language development occurs. Integrated are the supports that are provided to students during the instructional program all day. Title IV is transferred into Title I as allowable under federal regulations to further support instructional technology and enhance student learning opportunities. Together, these funds support and provide targeted interventions to students while building the capacity of our educators. So in addition to supporting academic achievement, the federal addendum also emphasizes a strong family engagement component and student support services. We continue to engage parents through school site councils, ELACs, DLACs, and educational partner advisory committees. We hold annual Title I meetings, different workshops, and have ongoing communication through Parent Square with our parents. The district ensures access for all families by providing translation and interpretation services and offering opportunities for meaningful participation during these decision-making processes. Federal funds also support some of our most vulnerable student populations, including our homeless youth. So part of our Title Is, we do have to have a reservation to support homeless youth. Services may include enrollment assistance, transportation, materials and supplies, academic counseling, tutoring, or attendance interventions and referrals to community services. While the supports help remove barriers to learning and strengthening connections between students, families, and schools, we know that we have to have the utmost attention in how we utilize those funds for those services. Accountability and continuous improvement. So these federally funded programs, we are held accountable for the use of these funds, and we do use multiple measures to monitor their effectiveness. So some of the things that we utilize are the California Dashboard Indicators, CASP, LPAC results, STAR assessments, attendance rates, parents' feedback, and annual SIPSAs, which are the school plans for student achievement, and our LCAP evaluations. These data sources help us determine whether our programs are producing the intended outcomes and also allow us to make adjustments as needed. Ultimately, the goal of the federal addendum is to ensure that every federal dollar is strategically invested to support achievement, support equity, strengthen family engagement, and to provide meaningful opportunities for students. And these funds are meant to supplement and not supplant, which means that they cannot be the core of our spending for specific purposes. And that is it for the federal addendum. Are there any questions on that? Thank you.
Are there any public comments? Ms. Gonzalez? No? Okay. Public hearings, the local control accountability plan. I now open the public hearing for the local control accountability plan. Are there any public comments for those? If not, then I close for the public hearing. Ms. Alvarez, on the budget proposal for 26 and 27.
Yes, good evening. So we will be reviewing the budget presentation, and the complete budget report is included in the packet for your viewing. Taking a look at the budget financial cycle, the complete cycle is 16 months. Within that cycle, we're working on both the current year and the prior year or the upcoming fiscal year. So in this process, we reviewed expenditures and made updates to the budget. We're looking at our estimated actuals, and it serves at our initial starting point for the upcoming fiscal year. Right now, we're currently at that blue arrow on the left-hand side where we're looking at the 25-26 school year, how things are estimated to end, and then looking at the budget adoption process for 26-27. A few budget highlights overall is that the 26-27 budget does have the sufficient reserves. For our size district, the reserve level is $2 million, which we do have, and we are projected to have a positive certification. The overall budget development process does include looking at our district priorities, the funding levels from the state and any other grants that we might have, trend data for enrollment and attendance, any salary changes and adjustments for one-time expenses, and any changes to our ongoing expenditures that we might have, any ups or downs, increases or decreases that might be occurring with those ongoing expenses. Specifically for our district, our enrollment, we have been experiencing declining enrollment. The enrollment is the number of students that we have enrolled from TK to 12th grade as of the very first Wednesday in October. The enrollment is what we use to create staffing decisions, but we are funded on our average daily attendance. So looking at a comparison of the two, the enrollment compared to the average daily attendance, this is a snapshot from 22-23 upwards to the estimated 26-27 figures. The attendance funding is based on the highest of the gray columns that we see up there. So the highest gray column of the current year that we're budgeting for, so in this case 26-27, or the prior year 25-26, or an average of the 3 years that we're looking at. So for us, our highest is the 3-year average. And while our district attendance percentage was just under 93% for 25-26, it's not too low, but we would like to see that increasing. The benefits for that, obviously, we have our increased funding, but then students are in class and increased instructional time. General snapshot of our general fund revenue. 67.4 million is the projected revenue for the 26-27 school year. A majority of that coming from the local control funding formula. That's how the state funds all of the school districts within California. 14% from state grants, various grants like the ELLB, ACES, Prop 28, which is arts and music, or learning recovery funds. Following the state, we have local revenue coming in around 6% of total revenue, and then federal grants, the remaining 4%. Moving forward to expenditures, just looking at those on an object level, that's how we classify the coding to describe what it is that we are spending funds on. $66.9 million in expenses is projected for 26-27. 73% of that going towards salary and benefits, so staff costs, and the remaining 27% for non-labor, so paper, pencils, etc., other services. Within that 66.9 million is the largest portion of our expenses being salary and benefits. We do look at that very closely. That includes adjustments for step and column. So the new placement that staff are at on the salary schedule in the upcoming year. Any estimated savings from attrition. This would be from any staff that are retiring or resigning, and any changes in cost to us as a district, whether it be replacing or refilling the position with a different estimated cost, the projected cost for the new staff member. In addition to that, we do have 5 additional FTE included within the total expenditures. And these are new positions identified to address areas that are understaffed and provide support for employees and students. Looking at the general fund expenditures in a slightly different way. So the function code is a section of our account line that distinguishes not necessarily what we purchased, but what was the intended use or what area of our district was it used for. So 76% of it was for instruction or people services or co-curricular, 12% for maintenance and operations, 9% towards administration costs, and 3% for other outgo. It's our COP payment for the modernizations that were done a while ago, and payments to KCOE for special education. So these are the projected breakdown for those categories. Looking at the two together, our total revenue and our total expenditures that are projected for 26-27, we have a total increase to the fund balance of $497,000. We break that down further looking at unrestricted or restricted dollars. So the unrestricted are funds that come to the school district and we have local decision-making ability on how we spend those dollars. The restricted dollars are funds that come to us with specific requirements and specific uses that we have to follow. So on the unrestricted side, we have an increase to the fund balance of about $1 million. And on the restricted side, we're spending down the funds that we have received for those specific purposes, together bringing it to the $497,000 increase to fund balance. Looking at the out years, not just the current year, but the remaining 2 years after, we have the 26-27 school year has the state projected COLA of 4.31%. Within that 4.31%, it's very important to distinguish that 2.87% of it is a statutory COLA, which means that the larger calculation at the state level says that they should fund us at 2.87%. The governor has included an additional 1.44% to fund primarily additional leaves that are being proposed for pregnancy disability reasons. But looking at the full picture from 26-27 all the way to 28-29, factoring in any changes in revenue, any additional stepping column changes in the remaining years, any changes to statutory benefits. Right now, the only one that we have a projected change on is the PERS, the amount that employer pays for PERS retirement system. And any reduction to one-time grants, we are looking healthy across the years. We do have an increase to fund balance, largely from the unrestricted side, and an ending estimated fund balance of $33.4 million by 28-29. Kind of diving into that COLA a little bit further, I know I already identified the fact that we have the 2.87 is the statutory or the amount required for the funding calculation. But that is how it gets attributed to our overall funding. We do have changes for attendance and other adjustments to the calculator. That means while we plugged in a 4.31% increase to revenue that the governor is projecting with the budget, what Corcoran Joint Unified receives estimated is only 3.61%. So if we take away the additional funding that's being attributed for the increased benefits, the actual COLA for the district is 2.17%. But it just kind of gives you a picture that from year to year, while we have a statutory COLA or the amount that they're funding us, the amount of revenue added to our budget does not always line up to be equal percentages there. And looking at the district funds, all funds within the district, we have our general fund, the student activity fund, adult education, child development, which is our preschool program, cafeteria, deferred maintenance is funds that we have set aside for larger facility needs, and developer fees. Lastly, our special reserve capital outlay, it's more the deferred maintenance being for like larger repair funds versus the special reserve being for improvement funds or other facility enhancements. But across all funds, we are projected to have an ending fund balance that is positive. all expenditures are tying out to utilizing the funding in the intended purposes that they were meant for. And our general fund ending estimated fund balance of 31.2 million for 26-27, 17.5 million of which is for unrestricted, and 13.7 is for restricted purposes. Any questions?
Why don't we have this year's actuals on there?
The 25-26 estimated actuals, it is included in the full packet, the full budget report, the state forms.
Okay, but that should have also been included in here, so we had something to reference that where we currently are at this time. Also, in looking at staff changes, so these are added positions that you guys are putting into the budget so that we could approve these added positions, is that correct? In the email you sent us a video and it had two different options, but there's only one option in here. And is there a reason why there is only the one option?
I can take that. We just listed all of them, but there's two options. So one would be if you go back to that slide with the stuff.
And then to add on that before, this is reflecting what has been built into the expenditures that are seen in the state report. So as Mr. Pacino might add on here is that there are still two options, but this is identifying what is already included in the reporting tentatively.
Okay, but we're adding positions. The ELOP supervisor, that is to me extremely unnecessary. You've already hired a grant consultant who is overseeing the grant management. And then you also have the RAC who oversees the boards, who also has their own board of directors who oversees them. To me, it seems like we're just spending more monies. I understand you guys meet with them once a month. And I don't think with you guys meeting once a month, that justifies hiring a supervisor.
What we looked at was the RAC does not receive all of the funds for ELOP, and Ms. Alvarez can give us the breakdown of that. But there are some funds that we receive as well that are pretty substantial, and this person would actually be overseeing some other components to that, which is like, for example, attendance recovery that could be funded within the ELOP expenditures, as well as some other key pieces that the staff can identify as well. But that's in addition to the RAC, and so that's where this came in, and it's funds that we already have in place. So I'll leave it to the staff.
Key, right? But what are those keys that are going to go into there? Like, you just can't put it out there and say, this is what we want. Like, give us a reason as to why it's really necessary.
So I'm gonna go back to one of the things that Mr. Ramirez mentioned about belonging. That the initiatives we're actually really excited about next year is potentially offering through ELOP funding, sending all of our 8th grade students to Washington DC. So it would be an earned trip, but it would be available to everybody. And so as you can imagine, that takes a lot of coordination and tracking and monitoring throughout the year. But we do believe it's a way for our students to see themselves, and really inspire them to think about college and careers. While developing a sense of belonging with their peers, their teachers, and really having something to, again, inspire some of the challenges that we face in middle school. So this person would help plan that over the course of the year and manage all the logistics. And secondarily, we really want to launch our attendance recovery program as part of making sure we have additional revenue coming in when our ADA has been a struggle over the last couple of years. So the plan that we've come up with is pretty tracking intensive again in the compliance monitoring. It would go year round. We want to try to launch it with 4th through 8th first, but potentially scale the 2nd semester. But it does require that our students are with teachers multiple days after school. The quality of instruction they're receiving to count for makeup to attendance is going to be high quality. And this person would help ensure that the compliance pieces are there, that the quality pieces are there. And then again, that would be a year-long project that they would oversee in that.
So but we already currently do the whole after school thing where the RAC is already overseeing.
It's separate. So that's what Mr. Casino is mentioning, like a portion of the funds goes specifically to the after school program, attendance recovery. In order for us to get the revenue, we have to be the employer of the teachers, which is not what happens with any teachers who work for the RAC. So again, we would need people to help, we would need a person to help manage those people who are employees for that portion of the program.
Why is it that the grant consultant that we hire to manage grants is and able to do that?
The grant consultant is actually seeking out grants and then they help us write them. So there's a grant that we're actually in the process of writing right now, which is the COPS grant that I think we've tried to in the past do, or we might have done once. And so Mr. Patterson is co-leading that, and they're doing those pieces. They're identifying grants, but they don't do the grant management for
That's how you
For
sold
them.
it to us. You sold it as grants and management.
it was for being able to, they said that they could do grant management if we needed it, but it was only for the seeking of grants and helping us to be able to apply for grants. So but they're not managing their grants themselves.
And how much are we paying them?
I believe the contract's a little bit north of $4,000 a month.
So who's doing the job that this ELOP supervisor would be doing right now?
It doesn't currently exist because the initiatives don't exist. So ELOP funding is gonna be use it or lose it kind of mentality. And so we've been leaving a lot of money on the table. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to think about how do we increase our attendance and revenue? How do we increase engagement and belonging? And so these are some of the action plans and ideas we have to make sure we're using that money that has been provided to us, that is not going to the RAC because they are very well funded. And so that we are, again, thinking about all the things that you mentioned about how do we increase engagement and belonging for our students.
The current allocation for ELOP is close to $4 million, and the most recent contract with the RAC was $3 million, but they are initially submitting a proposal to have that lowered. So if we don't spend the additional million, then that goes back to the state.
So who currently meets with the RAC and does all of this ELOP stuff? Because that person seems that they would be qualified to, I'm sorry, just wear an extra hat, because I don't think we need a full-time employee to do that.
That's Elizabeth and I primarily. And again, sometimes ELOP is, so the expanded learning opportunity program I know is often associated with just after school or the summer and winter, but it's much more than that, right? And so that's where we're trying to expand services that go beyond the regular day. So while we're liaising with them to make sure that their after school, the winter and the summer are aligned to our academic program, we have opportunity to do even more. As Danielle mentioned, there's $1 million more that we want to invest back into our students. And that's a different level of coordination because again, it's separate from our after school and our winter and summer.
So how much time do you guys actually spend on that currently? Between the two of you,
But the initiatives don't exist right now.
but you're working on something because you have the funds and you're coordinating with the RAC. So you're currently working with them and you meet with them once a month. So I'm curious as to how much time do you actually put into working with ELOP?
As a portion of the other responsibilities we have throughout the year. Like you mentioned, we meet with them approximately, one time a month to be able to coordinate, again, not this additional $1 million, but the $3 million for the programs that they oversee.
So what would happen is if we're not having someone that's having some oversight over that, we'd basically be giving up that $1 million because we won't be able to, we don't have the capacity to actually implement anything, and that's what they're saying. So they're very much expended on their own time, doing other things. I mean, staying late quite often and working on the weekends. That's all of our staff that do that. And so because they're already wearing multiple hats, which was found in the school services report, that creates confusion and I think they mentioned as we're woefully understaffed. And so what you find in most districts, and either Ms. Mendoza or any of the staff, if they want to chime in, is that most districts have some form of an ELOP coordinator, supervisor, somebody who is actually doing that work. Even if it's part of it is outsourced to another entity, because it's such a big investment that's not going away. So these funds, I believe, are going to be around for a while. If that's the statement, as long as they'll be able to fund it in the budget. So it's not a one-time. So that's where districts have said, we want to make sure that these funds stay local. We're gonna have somebody that has oversight over them. And so this is a supervisor to help implement those additional pieces that we've only listed on the board because we don't have the capacity to actually have them happen.
And if you're proposing these full-time jobs, why is it we don't have job descriptions for them, and we also don't have salary scale?
One of the things we want to do is get feedback from the board first, so we need to do that as well. I did talk to the unions today, the union presidents, so they're aware of this conversation that's happening. And so the one thing is, again, because we need to prioritize our time and where we're putting effort. We want to get the feedback from the board first. Are you interested in actually having these happen? And then we'd work on developing the JDs to bring back to you. But to do all that legwork up front, and then it just fall flat wouldn't make sense for us in the time that we have that we spend on the current programs that we have that we offer. And in speaking to both union presidents, and I don't know if they're listening, but they understood that, that we want to make sure that we have that first, and then we would move forward with some of them negotiated, like for example, the secretary of maintenance IT is a negotiated piece. And so that's where Dulce understands that. We had a conversation today. I don't know if any other staff wants to chime in on those pieces. And I know that the salaries, Ms. Alvarez can just kind of talk about the methodology there.
We just reviewed the estimated placement. Nothing has been formally finalized. That would need to come back to the board for approval and have a job description and final placement in the salary schedule. But I utilized the best guess based on conversations on where we thought that they would fall.
And so, I mean, this is just a report, so when will we just to vote on this?
The budget approval is brought next meeting, so June 24th. Though if there's any adjustments that need to be made, I would need to do that based on comment from the hearing.
So you want us to go ahead and approve at the next meeting without stating, yes, we're gonna do this, without job descriptions and without salary schedule? I think that is going to
Definitely that's noted. I'd love to see President Cisneros if other board members had any feedback as well and input, because we want to make sure that we gather everyone's input. Again, the purpose of these 5 was to really look at the school services report that said that we were very understaffed. And the thing that comes up in all the meetings that we have is the communication concerns, support for staff, and these are why we chose these different areas. And so again, not wanting to put all of that effort in there if there's not going to be, that's why we're getting the feedback from you all. So if it's okay, if we could get input, that'd be great.
Yes, so the HR confidential, is that the additional for the HR that the consultant brought to us? Is that correct?
Correct.
So at the last meeting, a few meetings back, when I asked about that employee, Danielle told me that that person was now at 100%. You can watch your video. So if that employee is already at 100%, has that employee received a change of job description and a change in salary increase because you have now made them 100% to that position?
We were working within their job description itself. And so this one, and this is also based off of not only the school services report, but also we've had Mr. Griffin here for about a month or so. And remember that he was a assistant superintendent of HR and business himself, as well as a former superintendent. And being in the role that he's in now, he's been able to assess himself and really see that it's really needing to be a 3-person department. One that would be the executive director, right? One that would be the business or really HR assistant, right? Because of the changes and streamlining. And they would focus primarily on classified. And one that would be this HR confidential, which is more focused on certificated, because that's like credential analyzing, that's dealing with, in our world, in the certificated world, for example, there's increases to pay based on units. There's different credentials that individuals get. There's a grant that just came out that we were awarded, which is around literacy. That's actually wanting to increase the levels of literacy credentials for certificated staff at the elementary level. And so all that's additional work that is going to be placed on our individuals. And we love that the legislation and legislators create these ideas and then they pass them down to us, like UPK Universal Preschool, but without knowing the impact that's going to have on the district and its staff. So no different than what you would see, for example, at the institutions where there might be some changes, hiring freeze, whatever the case may be, and now employees are having to work overtime. They have to do all this other stuff, right, to make sure that they meet that. So that HR confidential is really focused on the certificate side of things.
Okay, but that's, well, that just doesn't answer my question though, about them being 100% or not, because that's what I was told at one of the last meetings. So is this person 100% or are they still working half and half? And if they're 100%, then the job description should have changed because they're no longer working in the business, they are now working in their HR.
Yeah, we definitely can analyze that and see that. That's definitely something that's a district administration side of things, to be able to do that.
But you currently have stated that you have already given this employee 100%, so therefore I believe that employee should be compensated for it.
Okay.
If that was stated in one of those, and you can go ahead and look back at one of your board meetings that on YouTube, it states it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we didn't say that, but part of it, and
Right.
without getting too much into the weeds, part of that is, again, the administrator, that's a district administrator function, right? To be able to assess and see if does that person really meet the threshold to have any increase whatsoever, right?
So you're saying we're not supposed to ask questions about that?
No, I'm not saying that.
You're saying we're not supposed to ask questions about it because it's administrative role. So basically, butt out because you move this person to 100% HR. Fail to do a job description. How does that person know what they're supposed to be doing? How do you expect to hold that person or any other person accountable for doing their job without a proper job description? That is your failure, okay? You've done it once, you'll continue to do it because you think it's an administrative function that you are in charge of. But this board oversees everything, including policy, including job descriptions, and the organization of this district. That's our responsibility. But you want to say it's an administrative function, but that's where I'm getting from.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is roles defined in there for specific reasons. And what it becomes is it becomes overreach, which, just in other situations, that's been a lightning rod for the grand jury to really focus on those type of things. We want to make sure that we're careful about those things. I think that's really what it's about and getting to. It's not about having the board butt out. And so that's why I'm trying to seek additional feedback from the rest of the trustees to be able to see what other input we would need as guidance as we look at helping support our staff, right? We don't want our staff to be working 7 days a week, being away from their families or being frustrated because they're trying to get information and people are wearing multiple hats. And we're always going to wear multiple hats. We're a small district, I understand that. But we have a third-party report that has said that we are severely understaffed. And yet, even with those positions in the budget, we're still fine. So we want to make sure that we have retention of staff. But if they're overworked, quite honestly, they might not want to stay. Because at some point they're going to say, can I get the same paying job? Because we're very competitive in our salaries. We know that as we've done the research, and yet they can go someplace else and not work as much. So that's what we're trying to do is this whole notion of the sense of belonging with the students. There's also a sense of belonging for staff. And so we want to make sure that they also feel like they belong here. And part of it is making sure that they have the adequate supports that they need. And that's it. We want to get your feedback. We want to make sure that we definitely want to include the board. We're not saying about, that's why we're bringing it here, because you have to approve them. You have to approve the positions. What our role is to identify in the system where are the gaps and be able to bring those recommendations to you as being the ones who are in the work day in, day out, right? We're wanting to do that. So I don't know if there's any other feedback that we can get.
Your secretary to maintenance. What are your two secretaries up front for?
You want that? That's what I recognize. Just the two of them.
So we have 2 district office secretaries. I've reviewed the district office secretary 2. Not having them in front of me, it's a little bit hard to put the names to them, but the one has a combination of items in there. General district office support, and there are some elements for the maintenance department that are specifically called out. The other additional secretary is primarily supporting the business services team.
So you have a secretary up front that is for maintenance, correct? Part of their duties,
Part of the duties do include supporting the maintenance team, yes.
and you're requesting another one. That's unnecessary. All right, if you already have one, that's not. As a matter of fact, if it's supporting the maintenance department, it should be in the maintenance department. So that they're able to work with the supervisor, so that they're able to do what the supervisor wants them to do. Not sitting up front in the district office so that you have 2 people answering the phone. That's not, I don't think that's very good working conditions there.
I believe that. Okay,
The
I'm
other
sorry.
one is this maintenance supervisor, transportation supervisor. What would that be for?
Yeah, so I'm gonna address the maintenance IT secretary and the one that's up front. Actually, I believe the one that's up front, that's part of their job description. To be in that role, in that space, that's why they're there. So in addition to having to wear multiple hats again, we're trying to alleviate that pressure. And so even though, yes, they have maintenance and they have facilities and they have all these other components, I personally see their work daily and what the amount of work that's flowing through there. And not only us, but again, in the report that's from, and I know that you guys don't like hearing this statement, some of you, the report from school services, but that's a third party. The school services is someone that the state, the California Department of Education, brings into districts when they're fiscally insolvent to help them out. So they are the primary authority in business and in operations. So when they came that day and they said that we are short staff, one of the pieces in that report, if you remember, was that we're short clerical staff as well. And with the example that they gave was, if you have a principal, like let's say Ed, Mr. Larkin, right, is a principal, but he's having to do his secretary's job, he's having to do the custodian, and he's doing all those things, and never gets to being a principal, never gets to get into classrooms, never gets to focus on instruction. All of that's gonna weigh into the side. And what happens is with, for example, Mr. Rojas, who's here and is our director of MOT, he's not functioning in the director role because he's having to drill all the way down to that level and do that work in addition to the work that he's trying to do. So we're not operating at optimal because of the conditions, the situation. And so again, that's why that secretary is there, and it's supporting both IT, because again, IT is doing the same thing, focusing on the secretarial portions of it, the clerical, and not getting to do the work that they need to do, which is the director level, right? And so they're bogged down there, and so we see missteps, and it's not to the people. It's quite honestly unfair to them to put them in a situation that in essence is causing them to eventually burn out. That's what people end up doing, right? They're going to burn out, and so that secretary to maintenance and IT is something that was actually in the report, as well as something that, as we've talked to our staff, is something that's needed. Now, the 2 ladies that sit up front, and I know they're not here to hear this, and I know sometimes there might be misconceptions. They work hard. They do their job each and every day. They're amazing ladies. They are attention to detail. They're at their desk all the time doing their work. And so, and yet, even with all that just being there always is tons of work that needs to get done, because again, there's conditions. We set the conditions for people to be overwhelmed and burnt out. Okay, that's just what it is. The transportation supervisor, again, that position right now, Mr. Rojas, as the director, also needs to become the supervisor. So he takes off his director hat, having to be the one to be in charge of. I asked him like a while back, how many square feet do we have of real estate? That's something we need to find for you. But 6 schools, multiple buildings, thousands of square feet in real estate. Okay, and I know you guys understand those pieces, and to have someone that's supposed to be the overseer of those things, and yet have to go down all the way to the clerical level or supervisor level and do other things, and pulls them away from being here to do that work, is actually a detriment to our system. It's a liability. It's also can create failure. And so that's the pieces that we're trying to do, is create systems and conditions so our employees can, number one, don't feel burnt out. They're not overwhelmed with tons of hats on their heads, and that they have focused work. And so we can support students and we can support the staff. That's what that supervisor is doing. It's being able to be the conduit between maintenance and transportation, so they can do that work. And Mr. Rojas can really focus on the bigger projects and things that we have in the system. And that's, I don't know if you want to add to that, besides that, Ms. Alvarez?
Yeah, the maintenance transportation supervisor would be able to help support the departments in more direct hands-on time, where our maintenance operation director would be able to look at larger facility implementation, the amount of time that's required in any one given day to have to focus on the larger facilities projects, custodial, grounds, transportation, and maintenance departments all together is quite cumbersome. So having that additional supervision support for those 2 departments is extremely beneficial for both the staff and then community and families being able to have a point of contact as well.
And I'll give you a prime example of how liability and the effect on students rests when we have such a lean staff. How many HVAC units do we need to replace in the district? Like close, how many?
I'm sorry, what was the question? How many what?
How many HVAC units do we have to replace in the district that are over, like well over?
I know we have Bret Hart coming up, 17 units just at that site.
But more than that, close to 100?
Oh, yeah, more.
Okay, because, and then the reason why I use this example is because we have individuals that are not focused on the big things, and it's not any call out to Mr. Rojas, it's actually conditions. We're not able to create refresh plans. We don't have a long-range facility master plan, which is super important for a district to have. None of our staff can do that because they're wearing tons of hats and they're doing just the day-to-day minimum to survive, right? And so those are big pieces, because we have a ton of real estate, buildings, staff, etc., but yet they're drilled all the way down and having to do day-to-day tasks that are not allowing them to do the bigger things that are what the report said were liabilities for the district, and that we're at level 1 and that it's very concerning. So again, these are the 5 positions that we've proposed. There are 5 positions that fit within the budget. It's not breaking us at all. And we're still in a positive certification with almost $500,000 left over.
Well, I think it's kind of ridiculous that we don't have a short-term or a long-term, because that's something that's required. You guys have lessons. You have to have short-term, long-term. You have to have that by federal standards by the DOT. So to say that you don't have them, that's very concerning. One. The second one is the secretary. The secretary's up front. Nobody's saying they're not amazing. They are amazing women, in and out of the office, right? Personally as well. But are they at a secretary too at this moment? So we just want to create a secretary too now just for the maintenance and IT, and the maintenance IT is gonna wear two hats, because they're gonna work for maintenance and IT. So even though we're hiring another person, we're going to make them more multipliers.
Because I mean, part of it is, we're trying not to take
the full almost 10 FTE that the report said. So without bringing, I mean, ideally, if, to your point, if it was to everybody to only wear one hat, or as least as possible, it'd be 10 FTE. But that's not what we're proposing. We're only proposing half of that. Because we're trying to still ensure that we maintain fiscal solvency, as well as something that I've seen in other experiences, where if we put too much personnel to something and there's not clarity around what they do right beforehand, then it's really doesn't turn out well. So we've been trying to be very intentional about the question we asked ourselves is, what are the FTE that we need to maintain and to be a little bit better than we are, right? Not to be way out there with, 10 FTE or even more than that. And so we tried to, hearing you all and wanting to make sure that there's fiscal solvency, right? And being responsible, but also in the board priority of number one, safe, welcoming, inclusiveness, right? We want to make sure that's the same thing for our staff, that they feel that way too. So that was the purpose for that, but it would be great to hear feedback.
Yes, if they have something to say, that would be great, and I know that's your way of trying to get me to stop talking. But you want clarity for their positions, then why don't we have job descriptions for these new positions that you are proposing?
And that's where I wanted to chime in a minute ago, and I love the fact that we're able to discuss this, but I think that we all know the staff that work hard, they overwork, and I don't disagree with looking into hiring people to assist those. That is priority number one here, to make sure that everybody's working at their capacity and that way they can get the best. So I feel that we went off really wrong here. Like, you guys identified the areas that could need staff to improve. We as a board should have had that information. We need these staff, this is what they would be doing, this is how it would improve. And give us all 10 if the 10 had been identified as needed. And then together we could have came and identified, okay, yeah, there's a need for this, there's a need for that. And so right now I do feel myself that us giving these 5 individuals without what they're going to do, who they're going to help, how they're going to actually assist student services, it's very difficult to say, okay, we can approve because it's in the budget. I would like to, like Valerie said, make sure that we understand what their job duties are going to be. What is it that we're expending? How is it going to improve the student outcomes? Because I do believe that there's a need. That's not even going to be a negotiated state. I do believe that we need to improve the work, but I think we need to be more informed on that. So with that, I will go and pass it to Patty at the end, and then we can come forward, please.
From our report that we got from the trip that we had, we were short 10 people supposedly. And my question was, maybe we ought to look at the ones that is the most important. Are these the ones that we should look at? We've got the money, so that's not a problem. But there was 10 areas that were weak for this.
Yes, these were the ones that we identified overall that were the most important. Yeah, right. So these were the ones that were the most important. There were others, for example, they had a director, if you remember, they had special services split between a director of SPED and the director of student services, right? That was another piece. Part of that was our way of trying to alleviate some of that was the special education TOSA. So teacher on special assignment, we know that right now that what happens is Ms. Copeland, who's doing a lot and being the director of special services is really doing work that a certificated individual could do for IEP and 504 compliance. And that would alleviate a lot of from what she's doing now, so she can go out and monitor Because we talk about accountability, you want accountability, right? Monitor, support, and coach teachers, site leaders, and be able to be that conduit with other competing factors that are in the system. Like right now, we are working with the state because we are CIM, and I forgot what it stands for completely.
Compliance intervention monitoring.
Compliance intervention monitoring, and almost every district, I think, is a part of it because of the way the system's set up now. That's additional work that, again, legislators put in place that we have to take the burden because it's mandated upon us. And then what happens is that's something else that's placed on the plate. And then we have potentially in special education, serious liability issues with legal documents like IEPs and 504s that can create lawsuits, etc. So that's why that piece was in there, the special education TOSA. Right now, we don't have that. And that was definitely a high need recommendation because that's missing. So that's something that would need to be there. And then we've talked about the rest, but to answer your question, yes, these are the 5 that we felt were the most needed at this time, right?
I'm a little bit concerned, I really don't know how to phrase this, but do you feel that we are going, we're not doing the helicopter view from this, are we, is this your job and not all ours, or vice versa? Are we trying to pick up on some things that we just aren't supposed to handle?
No, I think that's a great question. Again, I definitely, we appreciate the board, right? And, there is that distinction. So in the update that we gave, we wanted to make that distinction clear in that the development of the organizational chart, where people are placed and all that is, and I'm saying this not out of disrespect. So just know that, as I say, this is not to disrespect anybody, right? Or the board as a whole. But it is why you hired me as a superintendent to do that work, day-to-day management, right? And it's also, I kind of equated to this, healthcare, for example. A surgeon's in the room and they know exactly what they do because that's what they studied for and they do all that, right? And so they're going to make those recommendations, or whoever is in that case, or we can say we can take it out of the surgery room, we could say a welder or whatever the case may be, right? They're making those recommendations based on their experience, right? And their knowledge base. That's what we're here to do. We're here to provide those recommendations based on our experience and knowledge base, being those practitioners that are there day in, day out, right? And so that's why you only see one special education TOSA and not a special education manager. Because in our thinking through it, it's what can yield us the best results without, we're not trying to put more in management. We're not trying to do that. So that's the role of the district administration. We bring those recommendations to you as a board, and then we're having this discussion, which is great, right? To get feedback, because that's what we want. And the questions you're asking are great, because that's definitely questions that should be asked, right? Why is it that this is happening? Is this aligned to what our priorities are? Those type of things. That's there. And are we gonna, in essence, the last question is, are we gonna go broke by making that decision? And so we're providing you that information, say, no, we're not. We're not gonna go broke, right? But at the same time, what we're gonna happen is the phenomenon is gonna be, and we've had it happen, is people have left because it's just the jobs are overwhelming. And so that's something that we want to make sure that we don't have. And so that's the distinction in the roles, right? We can't move this work without the board approving. And that's why we're bringing it here, okay? To make sure. But the goal would be, or the ideal state would be, is that in hearing our recommendations and why they're there, and we're providing those right now. And of course, yes, we don't have the JDs, the job descriptions, because if we would have did all that late work up front without getting any feedback at all, then we wouldn't know if it might have been wasted time, right? So we want to make sure we do that. And I hear that loud and clear that that's a request from the board, and we'll provide those, right? There's some out there already that we can look at, okay, that we can provide. But that's the way the process is. So yes, so we're doing the day-to-day, the more so than helicopter type of thing is is this gonna make us broke? Is this aligned to what the needs of the district are? We're going off of the report that the board approved and wanted, the organizational audit, right? Because he also wanted the HR audit. And so they said, there are things that need to get fixed, but you're short staffed. So we're not gonna be able to fix what needs to get fixed if we don't have staff.
I have a question for you. If you were one of those HR persons, full-time HR, who's doing the accounting job, the portion of her full job?
More of a technical question.
Who does the payroll section of the job? That was the question here.
I'm sorry?
Who does the payroll section of the position?
So that position that you had was half payroll or half accounting or payroll with business and half HR. Like Ms. Vega said, you guys move that person 100% into HR. Who is doing the other portion of that job? Because she's been in there for about a month and a half, 2 months, I think. So who's doing that job and how is that job getting done?
When you said she's been in there for about a month and a half, who is that?
Probably a month and a half.
Who is that?
I'm sorry?
Who is that in reference to?
The person that was HR and business services about a month and a half ago, probably the end of April. You came to this board and you made the statement that you moved that person 100% into HR. Who is doing the business side of where she was doing before?
So when I came on board,
Yeah, I think the question is, we know that that person was half and half. But a few weeks back at one of the board meetings, you stated that they are now 100%. He just wants to know, since she's 100% on this side now, who's covering that portion of their job responsibilities on the business side?
the question is slightly difficult for me to answer, mainly because the job duties haven't changed in large part. The classification of which department the duties fall under, that has changed. So while the person is still doing certain duties, it may have been previously defined as a business services function, but we're defining that as a human resources function.
Because in that role, in that function of business and HR, there's a lot of, it intermixes. And so there's not a clean break with business and HR. You can't say it's just this and this, right? And it doesn't, and I'm pretty sure that's true of whether it's a school district, a county level, private industry, you have that intermix. So an example, and I'm gonna give the most rudimentary example possible, and you correct me if it's wrong, but payrolls here, and there's a portion that's HR and there's a portion that's business, and they both work on that same one. So that's where it can become confusing, because it's still that, right? HR and business intermix. There's not one without the other. And so because in order to have an FTE, the HR side of things, you have to have the finances to back it up. So that's where they're both intermixed. So having that and really making sure that they have their HR business functions separated that way, but it's still mixed business wise. There's gonna always be that. It's always like that. So I don't know if that helps, but that's what we see in school districts.
So the person is still doing the business part also.
There are some business reports that are no longer processed by that individual. Those reports are something that the business services team generate, but
That's what I'm asking, who's doing the job?
It's just true. It's the rest of it.
yes, the other reports were distributed amongst the rest of the business services department.
I have one more thing that I want to make sure that is perfectly clear. Your two ladies up front and every employee of this district for the last 16 years that I have sat here have done an amazing job. They have come up to the plate and they have performed exceptionally well. And I just don't know how these 5 new positions, if they've been doing such an amazing job for the last 16 years, with not one complaint, and trust me, I get a lot of complaints, not one complaint from any of these people that have been in this area have ever come to light. I think the district is in the financial position because the board members that have sat here in my 16 years have been very frugal and very, to put it point blank, have been very tight with budgets and with expenditures and with positions. I would rather see you hire 5 new security personnel and clean that place up. And let's not have fights that we have every day than that.
So I would like to see the job description for the HR person updated, just so there's no more confusion. Right, so I think,
when we discuss it, we do have the need for staffing. It's just very, it's kind of confusing to have seen it here for approval already when it was a suggestion. So I think we need to figure this out and do this better in some way that we can have a better idea of what's more important for the district. It's just the way it was presented today was very difficult to absorb because it just seems like it's already in the budget, it's already a done deal when we hadn't had the opportunity to actually discuss it. So I don't know where we go from here, but it just needs some work.
That's part of my question. Thank you again for your input, because I think it's super important, right, to have this dialogue. So in this, we put it here in the budget because it's tied to the budget, right? So I guess point of clarity for myself, right, and working with the board is how would that look for you, for all of you, to be adequate? Because this can be taken out of this and the budget will be approved, that it'll just have that big chunk of money that's there because it's not going to go anywhere. It's just right now we had it potentially allocated to positions, right? So then it's really just there. So would it be to, in my experience in the past, we've had budget workshops which are just focused on positions, and we can have more of this conversation to get guidance from you. And then we bring it back in August for, then is it having a special board meeting in July to be able to really dig deep into that, to give the staff some time to work on it? But of course, people are going on vacation. So actually getting something in place probably wouldn't be until, in all likelihood, probably October by the time we get to that point, right? Because we have to start school and all the other stuff. So just curious to see what would be the best way to do that for the board, because it's new for us too, right? To be able to do that and be able to say what would meet those needs.
I wanted to know, here you guys give us the general fund, student activity, adult, so forth, that's your breakdown. Could you provide us a breakdown per department? Instead, so I know what the high school's budget is, I know what the John Muir's budget is, I know what transportation's budget is. What have they allocated themselves in their areas? I know that's how other governments do it, where you approve this department's budget and you review that budget.
Isn't it in the back?
But it's not presented.
How many?
How many departments do we have in the SAC scope? Okay, top of your head.
I mean,
Well, which
there's no department tax code particularly, there's a function, but all of like transportation services.
right.
Versus 7 hour. I wouldn't be able to give you.
Right. We're saying several dozen.
Yeah, at least 30 plus.
Yeah. So, and so, which is something that we could look at potentially doing in the future. Just know that you're gonna receive a presentation that's gonna be like 50 slides long or something. So I just want to make sure that that's
Informative.
the will of the board. If that's the will of the board, then that's definitely something we can do, but that's also definitely more work for the staff to do as well. So we just want to make sure that we're having that balance. So just curious to see, hearing that idea, I want to see what the rest of the board feels about it.
The other departments don't do their own budgeting. So like, HR doesn't do their own budgeting, transportation doesn't do their own budgeting, no?
They all have responsibility over their budgets, yes.
I think the added work because they already input that into the budget.
So sometimes they manage multiple funding streams. I think maybe perhaps that's where it's gonna be a little hard to extract, like, how much of this funding source goes to this department and overlap.
I look at my budget, I do my budget every year, I know what my expenditures were for the past 3 years, I know what my current allocations are. My actuals, and then I budget for the next 2 years, and I kind of already go off that, and I'm going off of my overtime and my. Employees, my training, travel, all of that, you know, and I do that for my own department, and that's why I'm just curious, like, do they not already do that on their side?
Right.
Because that's where you probably get all your numbers from, all your input to put into this data. That is very simplistic, very easy.
Well, I guess the thing is, because again, I don't think that, sure, so you, I'm wondering if you want that real quick to go. Or does each trustee want that? Because if we're producing it, you know, it's a lot of work, so the thing is does each trustee want, in essence, thousands of pages of budget reports that show the actual budgets, because that's the way it comes out from FMS. I'm thinking about it, and then we got the budgets, is that which, that's where I'm trying to.
You can think at other governments and other places and kind of reference theirs, because not everybody says that.
So just a question, I guess, for me, for how is this all best to
Oversee,
to kind of decide more?
so that helps us know if departments are keeping within their budgets. And who's not keeping within their budgets. And because we're not really seeing the big picture, we're just seeing, like, not seeing everybody, right? We're just being given this portion. We're not being given the whole picture. So what I feel is going on. And it's kind of hard for, in my opinion, to approve a budget when I don't really know what's being allocated.
The full budget workbook is in the packet, and it's the 132 pager that has all the state reporting that does break it down further by functions.
So
And
then it's already done, just it's.
I mean, we can adjust the presentation if that's preferred, if it's following similar format as before, but absolutely open to suggestions.
Okay, we see that then, that's enough.
Just to see.
No, we're here, no, about that. I am not a budget person. I'm totally lost most of the time. But I do wonder, I'm worried about letting the administration have a little bit of breath. I just, that's where I'm torn here. Valerie, do you have the city council on your back over all that stuff?
That's how we provide it, by department, itemized, that's how we do it, and our council, we have council members who will say, I will not approve an unbalanced budget. We have council members who, question it, another thing is, the city council, they don't put, the foreign register in consent agenda items. It's a regular agenda item, and high ticket items are already tagged so that they can tell the council exactly what it's for, what funding we use for it, whether it be grant or general fund. It's very transparent.
I'd rather have more information than no information at all.
I think that gives you
Kind of a good starter to see what's actually included in the package, because it's harder to review every single in the package, so we can at least myself and the vice president see that to see if it's sufficient. If not, we need more to be able to share with the rest of the board. That way we don't have to create new work for you guys and do the no only thing, just see what we're talking about first. Would that be good?
That's fantastic.
Okay, very good.
One last thing, just what I've noticed or what I've experienced in the past in budget development is it actually starts way before this time. And so, but this has been historically, I believe, been the process that we would do in May or June. In previous work that I've done, it actually starts all the way in January. And so we present by kind of like you're saying, by department, but you know, part of it is that there's there's pluses and minuses to that structure. So the plus is that you're getting all that information. The minus is that and we know this because we're both funded the same way in the sense of the timeline, that the governor's budget was released January 15th, and that's all some of those in some districts, they start doing the budget development then based off of those numbers. But it's not until really on Monday, I think it was June 15th. Well, yeah, May revision, but then you have the final on June 15th, when it's actually solid, right? And it's not even solid because they're still gonna negotiate all the way till August, right? So what happens is that districts that start that early, they have a lot of augmentations on the back end. And then what happens is community says, well, now you're lying because you said it was gonna be this way. Well, they were functioning off of old numbers, and now the new numbers are in it, it's changed. So there's always that balance of where it's at, and I think that's why most districts wait and do budget development not until, or these conversations until after May 15th, when you have the May revise, which Ms. Alvarez talked about. And so that's when you start to have those conversations. But what I do see, and something to recommend to the board, is actually having a meeting where it's just budget. It's actually a budget workshop. We're able to go deeper into those things. It takes longer. It's a 3-hour commitment, probably, I would think. But then it's really taking time to dig into that, which is different than having, where we do the standard two-day thing, right? So 2 sessions.
I agree, especially if some, like, trustees have said they don't understand it. Well, it is our job to understand and approve the budget. That's what I'm saying, it is our job to do that.
I think we all have to have the extra,
Yeah. Yeah, we're actually gonna bring back the governance calendar for next year, because we didn't do it during December, because one had already been done for the entire year. So we need it at least for till December, but we can actually do one all the way till the end. It can be revised at the organizational meeting in December if we need to. That can be built in to that in May, so that we can have that meeting for next year and next May. Could be that piece, because that could be helpful. The last thing I'll say, you guys have done a great job of training and really, seeking to learn and seeking to train. CSBA has a master's in governance that has a budget piece that you and I went to, that one section that really took time to dig deep into what was important, right? And at that training, the end of the day, they said, regardless of all the detail, what you need to see is that slide. If you can put it where go, that one right there, is that, right? Our ending revenue versus expenditures, and what's on the equal side. It's positive. And so they're like, that's where it's at, right? And so that's something they talk about. So, having that, we can always bring CSBA here, and they could do that training for everyone here if we want to, or we can see about, I think we went to Fowler and they had it on a Saturday. So those are things to consider, because it is confusing, right? If you're not in it day in, day out, and budgets from the city are different than budgets from a district, then different from budgets from a county, right? They're all different. And so being able to have that knowledge is not helpful. It's important. And so we want to be able to have that. So that's something that I would recommend to the board for us to look at, having CSBA come and either do a budget workshop, or we put that to a calendar, or we find the one that's out in the area and we go as a group to them.
So then, to just finalize the staff changes, and I feel that it would be best if you guys have some time to work on it and bring it back, and that way we can actually make something out of this. Yeah, okay. Okay, was that the rest of the presentation, Ms. Alvarez?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so what is this? I'm sorry. I now open the public hearing for Corcoran Unified School District proposed budget for 2026. Are there any public comments? None. Okay, therefore, hearing no comments, I declare the public hearing for the Corcoran Unified School District proposal budget 2025-26 closed. Okay, moving on to action items. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, I will second. Question?
What exactly is that?
Yes, Parsec is our data visualization tool. So they take all of the data from the different platforms that we have and they bring it into one source. That's what's actually created our accountability framework for site leaders and district leaders we have on the instructional side. So it's us being able to see the data. We look at everything from student test data to attendance to behavior. We use it quite often, and we've worked with them to build a customized tool that I was actually with them today online, and they're like, your tool's the most advanced that we've had from any district. And so again, building off of the notion of accountability that the board has wanted, we can't have accountability without having a way to measure first. And so that was a way of measuring. So that's something that we use also to build the SPSAs and the LCAP. They use that that data set to be able to do that.
And what's the cost for it?
The cost, it is the cost agreement's 54,000. It's in the packet.
Can you tell me why they're showing $118,584?
Let me see here. It is actually 118,000. So it's 118,000 is the total package. So there's a mistype on the cover part, but the actual contract is 118. So that's what the contract would be. Okay, so that's something an oversight on our part.
Roll call. Patty?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Valerie?
Aye.
And I. Administration, first reading of the board policies for mobile communications devices. There's no vote on that since it's going to be the first reading. And then first read for the 2026-27 elementary, middle school and Kings County Lake Education Parent Handbooks. It's also the first reading. And we are in the receipt of that handbook. Teaching and learning, consider the approval of Fresno Pacific Guarantee Admissions Program Memorandum and Understanding. Mr. Pacina.
Yes, President Cisneros, this is a really good thing for our students. We worked with Fresno Pacific and they are committing to an MOU, which would give guaranteed admissions to our students who meet the criteria for the university. And then in addition to that, they would receive scholarship funds. And so we have quite a few students who are actually there right now in a math academy. And those students are being exposed not into that institution, but they go to UC Merced as well to go visit that. We have a guaranteed admissions MOU with them as well. And so this just opens up broader access to higher ed. So the hope would be that they either go to Fresno State, Fresno Pacific, UC Merced, and they go anywhere they want, but those are guaranteed if they meet that criteria.
I will second. Roll call, Patty?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Valerie? And I. Personnel. We will now move to personnel item A, which is an information item. The board would like to formally acknowledge and receive the California School Employees Association's assessor initial proposal. And that is it, right? Okay, any future agenda items? Okay, we will, there's no closed session this time, so we'll go ahead and adjourn. 7:13. Motion to adjourn? Is that Patty? Okay. All right, Patty, Sammy?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Valerie? And I. And please note that the board will not convene a special board meeting beginning at the close of this meeting. Okay. I call to order at 7:14. The approve the special board meeting agenda. There's any public comments on this? So I just need a motion to approve the agenda meeting. I will go ahead and motion. The agenda? Yes.
I'll second.
Valerie second. Ayes. I need Patty.
Aye.
Sammy.
Aye.
Sandra. Valerie and I. Okay. The discussion for this meeting is a possible action regarding the advertising for celebrating America's 250th birthday fireworks show in Corcoran. The agenda was, item was requested by Mr. Ramirez. The staff had provided a board with an update of the advertising, for the upcoming fireworks show. This is the way we're gonna proceed with this, special meeting since it's the first one for me. So we will have the staff provide the board with the information. Mr. Ramirez, if you have any additional items that you could present to the agendas, and then we will discuss whether we need to move forward this or not. Mr. Pacina, if you could proceed now.
Yes, good evening, President Cisneros, members of the board. So the district, so this is something that was placed in the update a few weeks back. The district was approached by a member of the fireworks committee about sponsoring the upcoming event that's happening, I believe, July 2nd. The district was clear that we could not sponsor the event, but we could advertise. That's allowable expense within the CSAM. And it's something that districts do quite often. And it's advertising that we would do for enrollment. The committee member stated that the amount would be 2,000. And per the update, we gave the board that the board policy 3300 authorizes superintendent or designee to approve purchases of supplies, materials, equipment, and services up to limits established by the Public Contract Code 20111. Without prior board approval, these expenditures are later brought to the board through the regular warrant ratification process. Because the board has already approved the district budget and advertising is an allowable expense within the CSAM, this type of enrollment recruitment expense may be handled administratively. So it's at the administrative level. While the board could be asked to approve the expense in advance, doing so may set a precedent for board involvement in routine day-to-day business decisions. Board policy 3300 exists to provide administration the flexibility to manage these operational expenses on a day-to-day setting. So in case the district would use the funds, in this case, we would use the funds to post banners supporting enrollment recruitment. There's going to be fencing that's along the way, as well as the line of sight for the fireworks connected with the rack to make sure that that was there. We would have 6 banners, and those 6 banners would move from that day to our schools to also be used for enrollment purposes as well.
I believe your contribution of $2,000 for fireworks is illegal and not justified, not even for your advertising. You read 3300, it specifically states that advertising is for.
We did check with legal counsel that stated that it was actually an appropriate expense. And so they went ahead and confirmed that.
You check with legal counsel? Well, this legal counsel would have told everybody else.
Yeah, because I did research as well, and for the type of event, it says that it's not. That's my thing, I researched that, so I did research, and it does say that it's not allowable. And you're saying about 6 banners, don't cost $2,000. Not for 6. Not even if they're the big ones. The one that was already purchased by the Chamber of Commerce that is down on Whitley Avenue, that was probably $200 to $300 for that one. I don't understand.
But the advertisement goes on and on. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not just used.
And just for clarification,
Well,
the
it's over 250 and only perfect. That's all it's being used for.
just for clarification,
Well, it's specifically say that.
just for clarification, we will purchase the banners. We're paying for the advertising space, the $2,000, not the banners will be us. And that's our work that we do. We're paying for that advertising space, just like a district would do on a television, commercial, a billboard. That happens all the time. And we did check with legal counsel specifically to the fireworks event and that it was appropriate expense. The one that I just stated.
Which is what?
The board policy 3300.
So
the contract code. Yeah,
just so I can reference it here.
sure.
Okay, so it's time. Well, now can I go ahead and ask, we have two options, if either, someone can make a motion, for an action on this, whether it's, we're just. Or someone can motion to just close the meeting, use it, so I have the motion. Do I have a second? Okay. And then it's this way. Oh, I'm sorry. So roll call, Abby? No. No,
I just, I'd like to stay. And I would like to say why, one reason I would like it to stay is Boswell is a big contributor in this. They have done so much for us. And politically, it's not a good move, quite honestly.
We're not talking about politically, we're talking about the expenditure of public funds should be for
Which-
should be for educational purpose. If this would have been brought to the board, I would have suggested a way around it, is to sit there and invite all the kids in an area and teach them, bring them something about the Constitution, bring them something about what they're celebrating, because a lot of kids don't know. That would have been probably appropriate, and I would have been great for it. Your idea of the advertisement only came after you were called on the carpet, after the flyer had been printed with Corporate Unified, and it was brought to my attention and any other board member's attention. That was the only time that you changed it to advertisement. If you read it 3,300, that is not what 3,300 says. So.
Another thing is, if you look at the updated flyer, the chamber has already removed the school district from their new flyer.
so we have the. Abby, Sam, vote. Go through roll call now.
Okay,
Then you, I guess, let's do a motion to not approve in here, yes, to not.
that is correct.
All second. Yes, we have Valerie. Aye. Or yes, and then yes.
So it's to not approve to move forward, okay? All right,
Yes, so that you reference this information, the staffing report was taken to the city on March 24th. And it does state that the $2,000 is the part of paying for the finance, not the board cameras.
Oh.
So I just for your reference, it is in the city's website. And there's a breakdown as to who was paying what portion for fireworks, not banners.
What? Okay, I know what you said, yeah.
All right, so, motion to adjourn the meeting, do I have a motion?
I motion.
Oh, second.
Roll call, Patty?
I
Matt? Sandra? Valerie? The adjourned is 7:22.